I was only 17 years old when I made the decision that changed the course of my life forever. It was January 2020. At the time, I had no idea how deeply this moment would shape who I am today. My conversion to Islam wasn't something that happened overnight. It was the result of years of searching, questioning, and quietly wrestling with my own thoughts and beliefs. I grew up in what many would call a good Christian environment. My family was strict but loving, and my parents placed a huge emphasis on faith. I attended a private Christian school all throughout middle school, where we studied the Bible in depth. Even though I hadn't yet read the Bible cover to cover, I was very devoted to my faith. I memorized verses, shared them on Instagram, and even went live to read scripture with others. To anyone who knew me, I looked like a young Christian on fire for God. At the same time, I had been taught about Islam, but only through stereotypes and second-hand information. Growing up in the South, I barely knew about diversity. I didn't know any Muslims personally, and my understanding of Islam was limited to what I saw in the media. News stories filled with violence, negative portrayals, and countless misconceptions. When I started high school, life took an unexpected turn. Due to certain personal circumstances, I had to leave my private school and switch to homeschooling. This meant I spent most of my time at home, studying online. My parents were very strict, so I hardly went out, maybe once or twice a year. The isolation was tough, but it gave me something I had never really had before: time. With that time, I made a decision that seemed simple at first. I was going to read the Bible from start to finish. And so, in the quiet of my room, I began this journey. Reading page after page, I expected clarity, but instead, I was left with more questions. Some verses were inspiring, but others left me confused. Why did God speak one way in one part and so differently in another? Why were they? It was during this season of doubt and searching that I first encountered a Muslim. It happened at a school event. I remember the moment vividly. I saw someone who looked so different from everyone else around me. The way they dressed, the way they carried themselves, it all struck me. To me, it felt like meeting someone from a completely different world. And because of my Christian passion, I thought to myself, I'm going to convert this person to Christianity. Of course, that didn't go as I planned. Not long after, I went to the library with my grandmother. It was one of the rare times I was allowed out, and I wasn't expecting much. But there, hidden among the rows of books, I stumbled upon something that would change everything. Actual resources about Islam that weren't filled with negativity. One book in particular stood out. From the very first page, it challenged everything I thought I knew. It started with these words: "Jihad does not mean sacrificing yourself for heaven." That simple clarification shook me. I realized that what I had believed all along wasn't the truth. It was just a stereotype. Next to it, I found a well-translated Qur'an. In my area, it was rare to find one in a public library. Out of curiosity, I borrowed it. That night, I opened it, unsure of what I would find. But as I read, I was captivated. The words felt alive, direct, and untouched by human editing. Unlike the Bible, which had countless versions and interpretations, the Qur'an seemed consistent, powerful, and clear. From that moment, I began studying Islam seriously. I watched countless YouTube videos, learning not only about the beliefs, but also the daily practices of Muslims. I remember writing down the Arabic words of the prayers on flashcards so I could memorize them step by step. I even tried following along with tutorials to learn how to pray, practicing alone in my room. At first, I told myself it was just curiosity. I would think things like, I'd never wear the hijab, but I like the concept behind it. Or, I'd never convert, but this teaching from the Qur'an makes a lot of sense. Slowly, those "I'd never" statements began to fade away. With each new thing I learned, I found myself nodding in agreement, asking, why am I not Muslim already? Of course, with this came fear. I grew up in a deeply Christian environment. Everyone around me would say that Muslims were lost, misguided, or even evil. The thought of becoming Muslim terrified me, not because of the religion itself, but because of what people would think. I worried about my family, my friends, and the community I lived in. I asked myself, am I ready to give all that up? One night, it all became too heavy to carry alone. I knelt beside my bed, tears streaming down my face. For the first time in my life, I prayed with complete vulnerability, not just repeating memorized lines, but pouring out my soul. God, please grant me comfort and ease in this decision. Everyone is telling me I'll go to hell if I do this, but I can't understand why I would be punished for praying 5 times a day, dressing modestly, and worshiping only you. At that moment, something happened that I still struggle to put into words. A wave of peace washed over me. It felt as if all the fear, all the doubt, all the voices of others simply melted away. What remained was certainty. I knew what I had to do. Not long after, in the quiet of my living room, I stood and said my Shahada, the declaration of faith. By then, I already knew how to pray, because I had been practicing secretly for weeks. I remember standing on the prayer mat, whispering words in Arabic I had memorized from flashcards, my heart beating fast but full of serenity. Becoming Muslim didn't solve all my problems overnight. In fact, it brought new challenges. My family didn't understand. Some friends pulled away. But Islam gave me something that nothing else ever had. A clear purpose, a sense of dignity, and a connection to God that felt pure and unshakable. I learned that Islam isn't just about rituals, it's about character. The Prophet Muhammad wasn't known for preaching long speeches or debates. He was known for his kindness, his honesty, and his compassion. People embraced Islam not just because of his words, but because of how he lived. That realization changed me. I began to understand that sometimes the most powerful form of dawah isn't what you say, but how you carry yourself. Today, I look back at that 17-year-old version of myself and smile. I thought I was going to convert a Muslim to Christianity. Instead, Allah guided me to Islam. And that, to me, is the most beautiful reminder that guidance doesn't come from us. It comes only from God.